The camera opens inside a luxurious hotel suite, warm lighting, velvet curtains, soft jazz playing in the background. A man adjusts his tie as he sips whiskey. A beautiful woman fixes her makeup in the mirror. His name is Ethan. On paper, a successful businessman. In reality, a selfish man with no regard for anything beyond his desires. The woman with him is not his wife, but his young mistress, Chloe. Suddenly, his phone rings. It's his pregnant wife, Grace, 7 months along. Her voice trembles with pain and panic. Ethan, my water just broke. Please, I'm in pain. I need you to take me to the hospital. Ethan sighs in annoyance. He looks at Chloe and frowns. Can't you walk? The hospital isn't that far. And with that, he hangs up. Chloe smiles and playfully demands a full-body massage before he even thinks about leaving. Ethan shrugs, surrendering to pleasure while his wife suffers alone. Grace stood still for a moment, one hand braced against her lower back, the other clinging tightly to her swollen belly. Her breathing was labored, uneven. The sharp pain pulsed through her core, raw, unrelenting. The contractions had started nearly 30 minutes ago, but this one felt different. She looked down the long, rain-slicked street ahead. The hospital, her only hope, was over 30 minutes away, and she was completely alone. No taxi, no friend, no husband, just the weight of life inside her and the cruel silence of the world around her. She took a shaky step forward, then another, and another. Each footfall was like stepping onto burning coals. A fire was crawling up her spine, spreading through her body with every contraction. Her dress clung to her legs, already soaked by the first drops of rain. She reached for her phone again, but the battery was dead. No help was coming. Passers-by moved past her. Some slowed down. Some looked, but no one stopped. No one asked. She was just another woman on the street. Another story they didn't want to be a part of. A problem best ignored. And still, she walked. The rain grew heavier, turning from a drizzle to a steady pour. It matted her hair to her forehead, drenched her thin dress, made her feet slip on the pavement. But she kept walking, one hand cradling her belly, the other wiping tears that mingled with the rain. She whispered between shallow breaths, "Please, God, please keep my baby alive." It was barely audible, a prayer, a plea, a promise. The city didn't hear her, but she kept whispering anyway. Her knees buckled once. She stumbled against a streetlight. She held herself up, panting, eyes blurred. The pain was a living thing now, twisting inside her, but she didn't stop. A car passed, then another. No one looked twice. With every block she crossed, her strength dwindled. Her vision swam. Her breath came in gasps. But she pressed forward, because this wasn't just a walk to the hospital. This was a walk for life, not just for her, but for the tiny heartbeat still fighting inside her. And somehow, that was enough. Grace could barely see the hospital through the rain. Her vision was blurred. From exhaustion, from pain, from the tears that refused to stop. Her legs trembled beneath her, each step more impossible than the last. Her breathing had turned to shallow gasps, and her fingers dug into her belly as if holding her baby inside with sheer will. The glass doors of the emergency entrance were just ahead. She took one final step, then another, and then her body gave out. Grace collapsed right at the entrance. The world tilted. Her face hit the wet concrete with a dull thud. For a moment, all she could hear was the distant rush of the rain. Then voices, footsteps, urgency. "Someone help her. She's pregnant." Call the doctor. Now! A pair of strong arms lifted her from the ground. Nurses rushed to her side, guiding her onto a gurney, pulling her into the sterile brightness of the hospital. Ma'am, can you hear me? You're going to be okay. But Grace couldn't answer. Her body was shutting down, slipping into numbness. The pain had dulled now, replaced by something far more terrifying: emptiness. Inside the emergency room, machines beeped, monitors flickered, and tension hung in the air like fog. The doctor leaned over her, eyes scanning the screen. His expression darkened. "The baby's heart rate is dangerously low," he said sharply. "There's no time." Nurses moved fast, surrounding her, prepping for surgery. "We need to perform an emergency C-section, now." Grace heard the words, faint and far away, like they were coming from underwater. She couldn't move, but she understood the stakes, the danger, the life hanging in the balance, her life and the life of her baby. A mask lowered gently over her face. Cool oxygen hissed into her lungs. The room dimmed, the noise softened. The edges of the world began to blur, but in her heart, one thought blazed like fire. "For my baby, I will fight." Her fingers twitched as the anesthesia crept through her veins. Her body surrendered, but her soul did not. In the stillness between heartbeats, between breaths, between life and death, she clung to that thought. Not for herself, not for the pain, but for the tiny, innocent heartbeat inside her, the one that hadn't given up either. And together, they fought. Meanwhile, the hospital doors slid open again, this time with force. Ethan stepped inside, dry, clean, and visibly irritated. Not a trace of urgency in his stride, only impatience. His phone still gripped in one hand, a leather watch gleaming on his wrist. He looked more like a man checking in for a delayed flight than a father-to-be. He marched straight to the reception desk, voice raised, tone sharp. "Where's my wife? I got a call. She's here. Someone better tell me what's going on." A nurse looked up from her station, startled by his tone. "Sir, your wife is currently in surgery. It was an emergency C-section." "Surgery?" He cut her off, his voice rising further. "Are you serious right now?" He scoffed and turned away, pacing back and forth across the gleaming hospital tiles. "Surgery, of course, because women these days are so weak. Back in the day, they gave birth the natural way. No excuses, no drama." His words echoed down the hall. The nurses behind the desk looked at one another, their faces tight with disbelief and quiet rage. One of them, an older nurse with soft eyes and a stern mouth, muttered under her breath, "What kind of man says that about his wife while she's in there fighting for her life?" But Ethan wasn't listening. He had pulled out his phone again and was already dialing. The line rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, calm, familiar. His mother. "Hello, Ethan." "Mom," he started, frustration already dripping from his voice. "Can you believe this? Grace, she went in for surgery. A C-section. Can you imagine? What kind of woman did you let me marry?" There was a pause. Then, a voice as cold and cutting as ice. "Then I must be weak too, Ethan, because I had you through C-section." Silence. Ethan didn't say a word. He couldn't. He stood there frozen, the phone pressed to his ear, the hallway around him suddenly feeling far too quiet. His breath caught, his grip loosened. The very woman he idolized. The woman he had praised his whole life for being strong, traditional, real. She had done the very thing he mocked Grace for. His pride cracked, just a little, under the weight of that truth. And for the first time since he arrived, he said nothing. The nurses watched him from behind the counter, their expressions unreadable now. Some people grow in moments like this, others shrink. Ethan? He simply stood there, speechless. Just then, the silence in the hallway broke. The doors to the operating room creaked open slowly, and out walked the doctor, clad in surgical scrubs, gloves still on, his face marked by hours of focus and urgency. He looked around, searching, and then his eyes landed on Ethan, still leaning against the wall. He walked toward him calmly, then gave a small, tired smile. "Congratulations," the doctor said gently. "You have a healthy baby boy." For a moment, time froze for Ethan. His eyes widened. His face lit up instantly. A broad smile spread across his face, the first genuine expression of joy since he arrived. "A boy," he murmured, "a son." His eyes were shining now, as if those 3 words had washed away everything else, the anger, the pacing, the judgment. But then he didn't ask, not a single word about Grace, not "How's my wife?" not "Did she make it?" not "Is she okay?" Nothing. And in that quiet pause, the doctor's smile faded just slightly. His eyes studied Ethan for a second longer than necessary. Then he gave a polite nod and turned away. Behind the counter, the nurses stood still, watching, listening. One of them shook her head slowly. Another folded her arms, lips tight with frustration. "He cares more about the baby," one nurse whispered, "than the woman who almost died to bring him here." The others nodded in quiet agreement. It was all there, written in Ethan's silence, in the way he celebrated fatherhood but forgot the mother, in how he beamed with pride, while the woman who carried that child through pain, rain, and near death remained invisible to him. The joy of a newborn, overshadowed by the absence of compassion, by a man's pride, too loud to ask one simple question: "Is she okay?" Hours passed. The hallway lights dimmed as the night deepened. A quiet calm spread through the hospital, the kind that only comes after chaos. Inside the recovery room, the steady beep of a monitor echoed faintly. Grace stirred. Her eyelids fluttered open slowly, as if even that small act required effort. Her body was weak, drained, her face pale, lips dry, but her chest rose and fell. She was alive, alive. The nurse at her side noticed immediately. She smiled softly, then leaned down and whispered gently, "Grace, he's here." And with practiced care, she placed the newborn baby boy in Grace's trembling arms. For a moment, Grace didn't move. She just looked at him, his tiny chest rising and falling. His fingers curled, his face so perfect, so peaceful. Tears welled in her eyes, and then spilled, silently rolling down her cheeks. Her voice was barely a whisper, but it held the strength of everything she had endured. "Welcome, my son. I brought you here all on my own." She pressed her forehead against his, "And I would do it again." In that moment, the pain, the loneliness, the rain-soaked walk, the fear, all of it melted away, because now in her arms was her reason. The door creaked. Ethan stood in the doorway. His eyes searched the room, landing on Grace, and then the baby. He didn't walk forward. He just stood there, stiff, awkward, the weight of his choices clinging to him like heavy chains. For once, he didn't have anything clever to say. No judgment, no pride, just 3 words. "I'm sorry, Grace." The words hung in the air, fragile and unsure, but Grace didn't respond. She didn't look at him. She didn't even blink. Forgiveness sometimes is not spoken. Sometimes it lives in silence. Sometimes it doesn't live at all. There was a knock. A nurse peeked in. "Your family is here," she said gently. "They've been waiting to see you." Grace nodded slowly. She looked down at her baby once more, her fingers brushing his cheek. Then, as the nurse began to wheel her bed toward the door, she paused. For the first time, she turned toward Ethan. Her gaze was calm, not angry, not bitter, just final. And with quiet strength, she spoke. "One day, I'll tell our son how he came into this world, and I'll tell him who was there." She locked eyes with him, unwavering. "And who wasn't." Then she turned away, and the door closed behind her. The first light of dawn breaks over the city. The streets are still quiet, the air cool and damp from the night's rain. A soft breeze drifts past the hospital entrance, rustling the leaves and touching the face of a woman who now steps forward, not as a victim, but as a survivor. Grace walks out into the early morning light, her newborn son cradled gently in her arms. Her steps are slow but steady. Her gown still clings to her skin, damp from sweat and pain. Her body bears the weight of exhaustion, the toll of battle, but her face is calm, not with relief, not with triumph, but with power, the kind of power born only from surviving the unthinkable. She doesn't look back. She doesn't need to. Every step forward tells the story of loneliness, of strength, of a woman who endured everything, not with an audience, not with applause, but in silence and with grace. High above from the hospital window, Ethan watches. His hand rests against the cold glass. He doesn't move. He doesn't wave. He only stares. Watching the woman he once underestimated now become someone far beyond what he could ever comprehend. In her arms, she carries a child. But Ethan sees more than that. He sees everything he lost, everything he dismissed, and everything he never truly deserved. Because some women, like Grace, give birth alone, but they do not lose. Number They walk out stronger because what they bring into the world is not just a child. It's strength, it's resilience, it's rebirth, it's a new beginning, not just for the child, but for the woman who carried him, fought for him, and held on to life just long enough to whisper, "I did it." And as the rising sun paints gold across the sky, Grace disappears into the morning light, not broken, not bitter, but whole,